I still remember the day I signed the final papers. 8 years of sacrifice, 8 years of saying no to everything that made life easy or fun, all for this moment. When the agent slid the keys across the desk, I felt a lump rise in my throat. Those small metal pieces weren't just keys, they were proof that I had done something no one thought I could. I bought my own house. Not an apartment, not a rental, not a shared space, but a real 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a yard big enough for a grill and maybe a small garden. In that moment, every instant of exhaustion and self-doubt melted away. For nearly a decade, my life was about discipline. While my coworkers grabbed Starbucks every morning, I brewed dollar store coffee in a chipped mug. When friends planned weekend getaways, I stayed home clipping coupons and cooking pasta with jarred sauce. I wore the same winter coat for 5 straight years, patching the sleeve twice instead of replacing it. My social life shrank to the size of my bank account, but I told myself it was temporary. Every time I checked my savings balance, I saw a little more freedom growing. It wasn't just about owning a house. It was about proving that someone like me, no trust fund, no partner's income, no backup plan, could build a stable life from scratch. I remember spending nights scrolling through real estate listings, looking for something under $300,000 within an hour's drive from work. Every decent place seemed out of reach, but I kept saving. I skipped vacations, learned to fix my own car, canceled subscriptions, sold old electronics on Craigslist. I became obsessed with watching that dream inch closer. The day I found the house, it felt like destiny. A small, pale blue home on a quiet street with maple trees lining the sidewalk. The front porch had just enough space for a swing. Inside, the hardwood floors gleamed under the afternoon light, and the kitchen had a real island with drawers that actually opened smoothly. The previous owners had taken good care of it. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, clean, and perfect for me. I ran my hand along the wall and whispered, "You're mine." The first night after closing, I sat on the living room floor, surrounded by empty pizza boxes and paint swatches, too happy to sleep. The house echoed. It still smelled faintly of the last owner's candles, but it was the sweetest silence I'd ever known. I walked through every room, barefoot, feeling the cool floor beneath my feet, imagining where I'd place the couch, the dining table, the washer and dryer I'd saved up for. For the first time in years, I wasn't counting pennies, I was planning a life. People always say money can't buy happiness, but I disagree. It can buy peace of mind, independence, dignity. It can buy the right to open your front door at the end of a long day and know that every inch of the place you step into is yours because you earned it. My house isn't huge, but every square foot is paid for with determination, sleepless nights, and a quiet kind of pride that no one can take away. When the moving boxes finally disappeared and the furniture was in place, I felt ready to celebrate. For 8 years, I'd watched other people post their milestones online: engagements, new babies, shiny houses with sold signs in the yard. Now, it was my turn. I wanted to fill my new home with laughter, the smell of good food, and the people who mattered most. So I sat on my new sofa, typed out a cheerful group message, and hit send. "Hey everyone! Big news, I finally bought a house, having a housewarming party in 2 weeks. Here's the address. Can't wait to see you all." My phone lit up almost instantly. Friends from work texted back within minutes. "Congratulations! You did it! What can we bring?" Rachel called me, screaming through the speaker like I'd just won the lottery. "Girl, this is amazing! How many bedrooms? Is there a yard? Can I see pictures?" Jason from accounting sent a little house emoji followed by a clapping one. Even my old college roommate, who I hadn't talked to in years, messaged to say how proud she was. But from my family? Silence. I kept checking my phone, expecting it to buzz. Nothing. No call from mom, no curious questions from dad, not even a short "congrats" from my sister, Amanda. I tried to brush it off. Maybe they were busy, maybe mom was at work, or Amanda had her hands full with the kids. But the hours turned into a day, then 2, and still nothing. By the 3rd day, that happy glow I'd been carrying around started to dim. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone like it might suddenly apologize. Growing up, my parents had always said family should be the first to celebrate your wins. They weren't perfect, but they used to show up. When I got my first job, they brought over a homemade cake. When I graduated college, they took me out for dinner. But now? Not a single word. I caught myself rehearsing excuses for them. Maybe Mom thought a text wasn't enough and wanted to surprise me in person. Maybe Amanda wanted to bring the kids and make it special. Maybe they were planning some big family moment. The thought made me smile again, even if deep down I felt a pinch of doubt. Meanwhile, my friends couldn't stop talking about the party. Rachel offered to bring a bottle of Chardonnay she'd been saving. Jason said he'd help set up the food. I spent my evenings vacuuming, rearranging furniture, and making shopping lists. Every time I walked through the front door after work, that faint new house smell reminded me how far I'd come. I wanted my parents to feel that pride too. A week before the party, I called Mom. She didn't pick up. I left a voicemail. "Hey Mom, just checking if you got my message about the housewarming. Hope you can come, it wouldn't be the same without you." I hung up and waited. The next morning, there was still no reply. That silence started to feel heavy, like a fog that followed me from room to room. When I told Rachel about it, she frowned. "Maybe they're jealous," she said softly. "You worked hard for this, and some people can't handle that." I laughed it off, but her words stuck with me. Jealous? My own family? No. That couldn't be it. 2 days before the party, I sent one last reminder to everyone, just to be sure. My coworkers replied right away, double-checking the time and asking what they should wear. But when I scrolled down to the family chat, the message thread was completely one-sided. My cheerful invitations just sat there, blue bubbles floating in an empty space. That night, I stood in my living room, looking at the soft glow of the new floor lamp I'd bought on clearance, and I felt something I hadn't expected: loneliness. Not because I was alone, but because the people who were supposed to be happiest for me couldn't even bother to care. Still, I refused to let their silence ruin this moment. I told myself that no matter what happened, I'd celebrate anyway. Maybe when they saw how beautiful the house was, how much love and effort I'd poured into it, they'd understand. Maybe they'd finally see me not as the quiet younger daughter who always helped, but as someone who built something real. So I straightened the picture frames, checked my to-do list one last time, and whispered to the empty room, "They'll come. They have to." But even as I said it, a small part of me already knew the silence meant something I wasn't ready to face yet. The morning of the housewarming felt like Christmas and graduation day rolled into one. I woke up before sunrise, too excited to sleep, and brewed a strong cup of coffee while staring out the kitchen window. The grass was still damp from last night's rain, glistening under the soft pink sky. My first morning as a real homeowner, hosting a real party. It didn't even feel real. By 8 a.m., I was in full motion, vacuuming, fluffing pillows, lighting candles, double-checking that the bathrooms had fresh towels and soap. The food delivery from the Italian place downtown arrived right on time: 3 giant trays of baked ziti, Caesar salad, garlic bread, and enough tiramisu to feed an army. I set everything out on my new dining table, the one I'd spent 2 hours assembling with a screwdriver and pure stubbornness. The smell of warm bread and tomato sauce filled the air. My home looked like something out of a magazine. Around 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Rachel was first, as always, carrying a bottle of Cabernet and a big grin. "Emily, this place is gorgeous," she said, walking through like she'd just stepped into a dream. She touched the countertops, peeked into the backyard, and made me promise we'd host a barbecue soon. Jason and his girlfriend followed, then Kevin from college and his wife with their baby in a carrier. Within an hour, the living room was full of laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of conversation. My heart swelled. This was what I'd imagined: friends, warmth, belonging. But even as the clock crept towards 7, one thought kept tugging at me: my family still hadn't shown up. I kept glancing at my phone, refreshing the screen like an anxious teenager waiting for a text. Maybe they were running late, maybe traffic was bad. I didn't want to seem distracted, but every time I passed by the front window, I caught myself peeking out. Then, just as I was starting to give up hope, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel. Through the window, I saw my parents getting out of their car, with Amanda and her 3 kids trailing behind. Relief washed over me. Finally. I rushed to the door, heart pounding with excitement. "Mom, Dad. Amanda," I said, smiling so wide it hurt. I was getting worried. But something was off. Mom's face was stiff, expressionless. "Emily," she said flatly, not even offering a hug. Dad gave me one of those quick, obligatory pats on the back, the kind that says, "Let's just get this over with." Amanda herded the kids inside without a hello, muttering something about them behaving themselves. The warmth that had filled the house just moments ago seemed to flicker. I tried to ignore the tension. "Come on, let me show you around," I said brightly. But Mom waved her hand. "We'll look later," she said, her voice clipped. The kids slumped onto the couch, their eyes glued to the dessert table. Amanda disappeared upstairs without explanation, and Mom and Dad stood awkwardly near the fireplace, saying almost nothing. My friends noticed the shift immediately. Rachel shot me a questioning look, and Jason whispered, "Everything okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, just family stuff." When Amanda finally came back downstairs 20 minutes later, she walked straight to our parents and whispered something in their ears. I saw all three of them exchange a look of quiet, knowing glance that made my stomach twist. Then, for the first time all evening, they smiled. Not at me. At each other. By 8 o'clock, Kevin raised his wineglass. "I think it's time for a toast," he said cheerfully. Everyone gathered around the dining table. My grandmother, who'd arrived just moments before, lifted her glass first. "To Emily," she said warmly. "You worked harder than anyone I know, and this house is proof that dedication pays off." Cheers filled the room. Rachel clapped. Jason whistled. I felt tears prick my eyes. For a fleeting second, everything was perfect again. Then Mom stood up. "She has nothing to congratulate," she said loudly, her voice slicing through the laughter like a blade. The room fell silent, my smile froze. "Mom, what?" Mom's eyes glistened, but her tone was sharp. "You're sitting here celebrating, while your sister struggles to raise 3 children in a cramped apartment. How can you enjoy this big house alone, knowing they need it more than you?" Gasps rippled through the room. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. "Mom, this is my house," I said quietly. "I worked for this. Amanda deserves this home more than you." Mom cried. "She's been through so much, you should give it to her." I stared at her, speechless. Amanda moved closer to her kids and wrapped her arms around them in a theatrical embrace. "It's okay, Mom," she said softly, though her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. "Emily doesn't understand what family means." Aunt Denise chimed in from across the room. "Your mother's right. Those kids need space. Emily, be reasonable." Before I could speak, my grandmother slammed her glass on the table. "Absolutely not," she said, her voice steady and strong. "Emily earned this house, she doesn't owe anyone a single brick of it." The room erupted. Some guests defended me, others sided with Mom. Voices overlapped accusations, moral lectures, shouts about family duty. Rachel was yelling at Aunt Denise. Jason was arguing with someone about boundaries. I stood there frozen, watching years of resentment and jealousy spill into my living room. Finally, Mom exhaled dramatically. "We don't want to ruin Emily's night," she said, gathering her purse. "Let's go." They left, just like that. Amanda, her kids, my parents all walking out the door without another word. When the last guest trickled out half an hour later, my once perfect house looked like a battlefield, half-eaten plates of pasta, empty glasses, crumpled napkins everywhere. The silence was deafening. I stood in the middle of my living room, the place I'd dreamed about for 8 years, and realized that in one night, my family had turned my happiest moment into a humiliation I'd never forget. And as I picked up the broken pieces of my celebration, I couldn't help thinking, maybe Rachel had been right all along. Maybe some people can't stand to see you happy, especially when they think you don't deserve it. The morning after the party, my house still smelled like garlic bread and spilled wine. I walked through the mess in silence, plates stacked in the sink, napkins crumpled on the floor, a single balloon deflating in the corner. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my mother's voice echoing through the room, "She has nothing to congratulate." The words clung to the walls like smoke. I spent the entire morning cleaning, trying to scrub away the humiliation. The same people who had once told me family comes first had just tried to publicly shame me in my own living room. By noon, the trash bags were full, but the heaviness in my chest wouldn't leave. I made myself a cup of coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at the quiet house that had cost me nearly a decade of sacrifice. At 8 a.m. the next day, my phone rang. It was Mom. No apology, no softness in her voice. Just businesslike, cold. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" she asked. I blinked. "You mean the part where you humiliated me in front of everyone I know?" "Don't be dramatic, Emily," she said sharply. "We're talking about what's right. Your sister has 3 children, you're just one person living alone in a big house, you don't need all that space." I could barely breathe. "Mom, I worked for this, I sacrificed for 8 years while Amanda was getting child support and vacations. This is my house." "You'll change your mind," she said, her voice dripping with dismissal. "Family should come before selfish desires." And then, she hung up. I sat there, gripping my coffee mug so hard my knuckles turned white. No apology. No remorse, just the same guilt she'd been using on me since I was a kid. But this time, I wasn't the same Emily. For 2 days, I ignored every call. Then my friend Rachel phoned, her voice trembling with anger. "Emily, have you seen your mom's Facebook post?" My stomach sank. "What post?" "You need to look. Right now." I opened Facebook and found it immediately. My mom's profile picture, her smiling next to Amanda's kids, was plastered above a post with more than 100 reactions. The first thing I saw were photos. Photos of Amanda's apartment, taken in dim light to make everything look cramped and depressing. Toys everywhere, dishes piled up in the sink, kids sitting on the floor in their pajamas. Then came the pictures from my party. Bright, warm shots of my house filled with food and laughter. Me smiling, glass in hand. And the caption beneath it made my heart drop. "While some people celebrate selfishly in their big, empty homes, my daughter Amanda struggles to provide for her 3 beautiful children in a tiny apartment. It breaks my heart to see my grandchildren living this way, while others in the family care only about themselves." The post had already exploded. Dozens of relatives and old family friends were commenting, "Emily should be ashamed. Those poor kids deserve better. How can she live with herself?" Even Aunt Denise chimed in, writing, "Maybe Emily will finally do the right thing." My hands shook as I scrolled. My phone buzzed, non-stop calls, messages, notifications. Cousin Jenny left a voicemail, crying and begging me to do the moral thing. Uncle Bob said I was tearing the family apart. I turned my phone face down on the table and sat in the silence, my pulse pounding. The betrayal burned deeper than anything I'd ever felt. My own mother had turned me into a villain online. She'd used my success, the thing I'd worked for, to paint me as cruel, and people believed her. I stopped answering calls. I even considered deleting my account, but part of me refused to run away. This was my life, my truth. Still, the messages kept coming. My voicemail filled up within hours. Every ding from my phone made my stomach twist. I started muting group chats and blocking numbers, one after another, until the screen finally went quiet. Then Grandma called. Her voice was calm, steady, and full of love. "Sweetheart, can you come see me?" she said. "I think we need to talk." I drove over that evening, my chest tight with dread. Grandma lived alone in the same little brick house my dad grew up in. When she opened the door and saw my face, she didn't need to ask. She just pulled me into her arms. "I saw the post," I said, handing her my phone. She squinted at the screen, scrolling slowly, her frown deepening. When she looked up, her eyes were sharp and sad at once. "This is wrong, Emily. What your mother is doing, it's manipulation. Plain and simple." "I feel like I'm losing my mind," I admitted. "Half the family's turned against me. They keep saying I'm selfish, but I helped them for years, Grandma. I paid their bills, lent money for car repairs, even helped Amanda with her divorce lawyer." Grandma nodded, her voice gentle but firm. "You've always been generous, honey. Too generous. And now they're punishing you for setting boundaries." I sat there, tears spilling down my face, as she poured me tea and talked about fairness, dignity, and the importance of standing your ground. "Family should support you, not shame you," she said. "You don't owe anyone your home, your peace, or your joy." Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. For the first time in days, I felt understood. When I left her house that night, the air outside was cold but clean. I realized I wasn't crazy or cruel, I was just done being controlled. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. I didn't know how right I was. The next knock on my door would prove that my family wasn't finished with their campaign, they were just getting started. A few days after my visit with Grandma, I started to breathe easier. The storm on social media had quieted down, the phone calls had slowed, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. I focused on work, watered the tiny basil plants on my kitchen windowsill, and tried to enjoy the peace of my home, the same home that had almost been taken from me by guilt and manipulation. Then, one Saturday morning, a knock echoed through the house, 3 sharp raps on the front door. I looked through the peephole and froze. Standing on my porch were Grandma, Mom, Dad, and Amanda. Together. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. Grandma had been the only one who supported me. Why was she here with them? My stomach dropped. I opened the door slowly. Grandma? What's going on? She smiled softly, but her eyes were serious. We need to have a family talk, sweetheart, all of us. I stepped aside and let them in, though every nerve in my body screamed not to. Mom and Dad walked in like they owned the place, taking off their coats and exchanging smug looks. Amanda trailed behind, holding her purse tightly and scanning the living room like she was inspecting real estate. We all sat around the dining table. Grandma cleared her throat, resting her hands on the tablecloth I'd bought for the party, the one still faintly stained from red wine. I've been thinking about what's been happening, she said slowly, her voice calm but heavy, and I made a decision. Mom leaned forward, her expression brightening instantly. Mother, I'm so glad to hear that. We knew you'd see reason about this. Dad nodded eagerly. Amanda's lips twitched into a small smile. But Grandma wasn't smiling. Yesterday, I met with my lawyer, she said. And I changed my will. The room went silent. Mom's hopeful grin froze. You, what? Grandma continued, steady as ever. I had planned to leave everything to Frank, she said, glancing at my father. I trusted he'd divide it fairly between his daughters. But after what I've seen, that wouldn't be fair at all. Amanda's mouth dropped open. Mom blinked rapidly, color draining from her face. I'm leaving my savings, almost $400,000, to Emily, Grandma said firmly, and my house will be split evenly between Emily and Amanda. The silence that followed was electric. Then Amanda shot up from her chair. What? That's not fair. Emily already has a house. Grandma's eyes narrowed. Emily earned her house. She worked and saved for years while you lived comfortably on child support. You've received more help than you care to admit. Mom's voice trembled with anger. Mother, you can't be serious. Amanda has 3 children, she needs that money more than Emily does. I'm rewarding hard work and responsibility, Grandma said sharply, something Emily has shown and the rest of you clearly haven't. Dad finally spoke, his tone desperate. Mom, this isn't right. We're family. We should share equally. Grandma turned to him, her voice icy but calm. Did you share equally when you paid for Amanda's wedding but not Emily's college graduation? Did you share equally when you helped Amanda move twice but wouldn't help Emily load her furniture into her first apartment? You could hear a pin drop. Amanda's face turned red. Grandma, please, think of your great-grandchildren. They need space, stability. Grandma cut her off. If you truly cared about your children's stability, you'd stop trying to steal your sister's house and start building your own. Mom slammed her palm on the table. If you do this, you'll tear this family apart. Grandma stood, her expression unshaken. This family was already torn apart the moment you humiliated Emily in front of her guests and turned the entire town against her online. I'm just making sure the damage doesn't go any further. I sat frozen, barely able to breathe. Grandma, my quiet, soft-spoken grandma, was defending me with the force of a storm. She looked directly at Mom then. And if you don't delete that hateful Facebook post by tomorrow morning and post a public apology, I'll change my will again, and this time, everything will go to Emily, every penny, every possession. The threat hit them like a thunderclap. Mom's face went pale, Dad's jaw tightened, Amanda's eyes filled with angry tears. You have until noon tomorrow, Grandma said, pointing toward the door. Now leave Emily's home and think very carefully about your next move. No one argued after that. They stood in silence, gathered their things, and shuffled out of my house like scolded children. When the door closed behind them, I turned to Grandma, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Thank you," I whispered. "I can't believe you did that." She smiled and took my hands. "I should have done it years ago," she said softly. "I've watched them take advantage of you long enough. You've earned everything you have, Emily. Don't ever let them make you feel guilty for your success." We sat together in the quiet, the afternoon sun pouring through the windows. For the first time since this nightmare began, the air felt light again. The next morning, Mom's Facebook post was gone, replaced by a new one, short, stiff, and clearly forced. "I want to apologize to my daughter, Emily, for my inappropriate comments about her home. I was wrong, and I'm proud of her accomplishments." It didn't sound sincere, but it didn't matter, the damage had been undone. That evening, I walked through my home, the same home that had once felt tainted by betrayal, and felt something new: peace. True, unshakable peace. Grandma's courage had given me back my dignity. And for the first time, I knew exactly where I stood. Family, I realized, isn't just about blood, it's about who stands up for you when everyone else tries to tear you down. 4 months have passed since that day, and my life finally feels like it belongs to me again. The chaos has faded, the phone has gone quiet, and for the first time in years, I wake up to peace instead of tension. Every morning, sunlight pours through my kitchen window, catching the small crystal vase Grandma gave me, scattering little rainbows across the countertop. It's funny how something as simple as quiet can feel like luxury after years of walking on emotional eggshells. Mom, Dad, and Amanda still try to reach out occasionally, a text here, a voicemail there, always with the same message, just dressed up differently. "We miss you. Can we talk? You should convince Grandma to change the will." Some sound like guilt trips, others like fake concern. I've stopped responding. I don't block them, I don't need to. Their silence afterward tells me everything I need to know. I'm learning to enjoy being alone without feeling lonely. I host dinner nights for my friends now. Rachel brings wine, Jason grills in the backyard, and Kevin always shows up with his baby, who's learning to walk and leaves tiny fingerprints on my glass doors. The laughter that fills my house now is genuine, no hidden judgment, no forced smiles, just people who are happy for me, not threatened by me. Sometimes I catch myself thinking back to that awful night, when my mother called me selfish and strangers online called me cruel. I remember how small I felt standing in my own living room, surrounded by people arguing over whether I deserved what I had earned. But then I think about how far I've come since that moment, how I refused to let their bitterness define my worth. That night didn't break me. It revealed who I could be when I finally stopped trying to please everyone else. Grandma and I talk every week, she's become my anchor in ways I never expected. We drink tea together on Sundays, and she tells me stories from her younger years about standing up to people who underestimated her, about losing friends when she refused to be used. She says every generation has its lesson, and mine was learning to say no. She's proud of me. And for once, I'm proud of myself too. I've redecorated the house since the party. The dining room, once filled with shouting, is now painted a warm sage green. I built a small garden in the backyard with tomatoes and sunflowers. The front porch has that swing I always dreamed of, and on quiet evenings, I sit there with a book, watching the sunset and the neighborhood kids riding their bikes. Every little thing, every nail, every coat of paint feels like proof that I survived something meant to crush me. I used to believe that being part of a family meant sacrificing for them no matter what, but now I know that love without respect isn't love, it's control. My family taught me that lesson the hard way, but Grandma showed me how to rewrite it. This house isn't just wood and drywall. It's my boundary, my freedom, my reminder that I don't owe anyone my peace, and when I lock the door each night, I know the life on the other side truly belongs to me. Looking back now, I realize this was never just about a house, it was about reclaiming myself. For years, I confused love with obligation and kindness with surrender. My family believed that sharing blood gave them the right to my sacrifices, my money, even my peace, but family isn't defined by who demands from you, it's defined by who stands beside you when you say no. I learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're doors you choose who to let in. Grandma reminded me that self-respect isn't selfishness, and protecting what you've earned doesn't make you cold-hearted. It makes you free. My story isn't about revenge, it's about awakening. Because when you stop apologizing for your success and start valuing your own worth, that's when you truly build a home not just with bricks and wood, but with courage, clarity, and peace.